I want you to just picture a scenario for a second. You're sitting at your desk, maybe you've got your morning coffee, and this file lands right in front of you.
Heavy thud on the desk.
Exactly, a heavy thud. It's got this thick, high-quality cover paper, and the title just says The Golden Fund. Or, in the original Arabic, Al-Sanduk al-Thahabi.
It's a great name.
It is. But what's your first instinct when you read that? Because I'll be totally honest, mine was, okay, this is a pension plan.
Right.
This is some nice, safe, very conservative wealth management tool for when I retire.
Sounds incredibly traditional, doesn't it?
Yeah.
It has this weight to it.
Yeah.
Like something you put your money into, you lock it in a vault, and then you just sort of forget about it for 30 years.
Until you're ready to buy a beach house.
Exactly.
It sounds predictable, safe. But then I actually opened the document. This is a prospectus, by the way, authored by Dr. Kamal Eldin Mohamed Yagoub. And I am not joking, within about 2 pages, my head was just spinning.
You're expecting bonds.
I'm expecting interest rates, I'm expecting bonds, and instead I'm reading terms like nanotechnology,
Yeah.
artificial intelligence governance, green mining, tech guarantees. It was like opening this dusty vintage ledger and finding a blueprint for a warp drive tucked inside.
That is a fantastic way to frame it. And honestly, that dissonance you felt, that kind of whiplash,
Yeah.
that is exactly what makes this deep dive so interesting today. Because what we're looking at is a document that suffers from a bit of an identity crisis,
Definitely.
but in the most fascinating way possible. It's a comprehensive feasibility study and a project proposal that's basically trying to force 2 entirely different worlds together. Worlds that usually, honestly, really hate each other.
Which worlds are we talking about here?
The world of high-level, slow-moving, rigorous academic research,
Okay.
and the world of aggressive, fast-moving financial investment.
It's wildly ambitious. I mean, the source material frames this whole thing under what they call a philosophy of uniqueness.
Which is quite a bold title.
Very bold. But before we get into the heaviest sci-fi tech stuff, and we absolutely will get to the nanotech,
Oh, we have to.
let's talk about the mission first. What is this fund actually trying to build? Like, is it a lab? Is it a factory? Is it a bank?
The short answer to that is yes.
Just yes to all of it.
Yes to all of it. And that's the core tension we really need to unpack today. Because the document proposes an entity that functions as a research lab to actually create the intellectual property, a manufacturing plant to physically build the tech, and a university to train the staff to run the whole thing.
Which, to be honest with you, sounds like an absolute logistical nightmare.
It's a lot.
Usually, startups pick one lane, right? You make the widget or you design the widget. You don't try to be the university that teaches people how to think about the widget while also being the bank that insures it, all at the same time.
Right. Well, that's the Renaissance man approach that Dr. Kamal is pitching here. And it really stems directly from his own background. If you look at the bio provided in the source,
It's very extensive.
he isn't just a finance guy. He lists expertise in nanotechnology, clean and green energy, technology transfer, green mining, AI, and crucially here, governance.
Okay.
So he's arguing that the reason deep tech startups fail so often is that they're actually...
Okay, so that's the theory. That's the moat around the castle, so to speak. Let's actually look at what's inside the castle, because the document breaks this down into these pillars, or rakiza in Arabic, and the first 2 pillars are really where the rubber meets the road. We're talking science and tech.
Right. So Pillar 1 is scientific research. And this section is where the document takes a really massive swipe at modern Silicon Valley culture.
How so? Like the whole move fast and break things idea.
Exactly that. Think about how most apps or software companies start today. They build an MVP.
A minimum viable product.
Right. Basically a prototype that barely works, it's super buggy, and they just push it out to get users immediately.
And then they just patch it later.
Exactly. They fix it in post. This document says absolutely not. We start in the research lab. We don't sell anything. We don't manufacture anything until it is mathematically and scientifically proven.
And it really heavily emphasizes patents, right? I saw a mention in there of aiming for 20 years of market protection.
20 years, which, I mean, that is a lifetime in the technology sector.
Oh, yeah. I mean, 20 years ago, we were barely using basic smartphones.
Right. To get a patent that strong, you need something fundamentally scientifically new, not just a tiny UI improvement. And they double down on this requirement by demanding peer-reviewed papers.
Now, that part stood out to me as really counterintuitive.
How so?
Well, usually if I have a if I've invented a secret sauce, I'm keeping that in a vault. I am definitely not publishing it in a global journal for all my competitors to just read.
So why is Dr. Kamal insisting on publishing peer-reviewed papers?
Because it's about validation and ultimately valuation. If you walk into a room and claim your new nanotechnology can increase solar efficiency by 50%, investors are going to be extremely skeptical.
Because it sounds like magic.
It sounds like pure magic, and investors hate magic. They like physics. But if that exact same claim is peer-reviewed and published in a top-tier global physics journal, suddenly it becomes a tangible asset. It creates defensibility.
It proves the physics actually works before you go out and spend $50 million building the factory. Exactly. They even explicitly list partnering with academic heavyweights, places like MIT, Stanford, Cambridge. It's structured way less like a traditional startup and a lot more like a university department that just decided to go public.
So it's using academia as a really strict quality control filter for the business side?
Yes.
That makes sense. Let's talk about the actual tech, though, because it's very easy to just say, hey, we do science, but what kind of science? Pillar 2 describes this unique technological integration, and they list 3 specific fields: nanotechnology, AI, and renewable energy.
The Tech Trinity.
The Tech Trinity. Which, look, it sounds very buzzword heavy.
It does.
It sounds like they just picked the 3 most expensive words they could find in a VC dictionary and threw them in a blender. How do these 3 things actually fit together in the proposal? Is there a real logic to it?
There is actually a very logical flow if you break it down carefully. Think of it kind of like a high-end restaurant kitchen.
Okay, I'm with you.
Nanotechnology is your raw ingredients. You aren't just using standard flour and water here. You are manipulating materials at the literal molecular level to get significantly better performance, making things lighter, stronger, vastly more conductive.
Okay, so nanotech is the raw material.
Right. Then, renewable energy is the meal you're actually serving. That's the final market product. The custom solar panel, the advanced battery. That's what the customer actually pays for.
And AI. Where does the artificial intelligence fit into the kitchen? Is it a robot chef?
AI is the master chef doing the quality control. Because in material science, especially with nanotech, the absolute hardest part is consistency. How do you actually make sure that every single square inch of a massive solar panel has the exact perfect molecular structure?
Humans definitely can't check that.
No, it's way too small. But AI can.
Yeah.
The document strongly suggests using AI for predictive maintenance and deep quality control. So the AI basically ensures that the nanotech is applied perfectly to create the ultimate renewable energy solution.
So instead of just slapping together a solar panel, you're using AI to nano-engineer a panel that is chemically just vastly superior to whatever is currently on the market.
That's the pitch. And because that entire process is so incredibly complex, I mean, you need the massive data sets for the AI, you need the specialized lab for the nano, it circles right back to that moat we talked about earlier. It's practically impossible for a traditional competitor to replicate that entire supply chain.
All right, but that sounds expensive. I mean, high tech usually means an incredibly high burn rate. You need expensive electron microscopes, expensive supercomputers, and really expensive scientists.
Yes.
So let's look at pillar 3, the economics. What kind of money are they actually asking for here?
Well, the range they provide is curiously broad. The document lists capital requirements starting at $500,000, going all the way up to $10 million.
That's a huge gap.
It is. It suggests they are open to different tiers of investors, sure, but they definitely need serious seed capital. This is clearly not a Kickstarter campaign.
And the return. Because if I'm giving you, let's say, $1 million for your science experiments, I want a pretty substantial payout.
They are projecting a minimum ROI return on investment of at least 25%. And the executive summary even teases that it could go up to 40%.
40% is, I mean, that is aggressive. Honestly, if my retirement fund promised me 40%, I would immediately assume it was a Ponzi scheme or they were gambling on crypto.
It is incredibly high, yes. It definitely raises eyebrows. But you also have to look at the payback period they're claiming.
Yeah.
They state a payback of just 2 to 3 years.
See, that is exactly where I get really skeptical. For a hard science physical hardware project, that seems almost impossibly fast. Software, sure, you write the code once, you sell the license 1 million times over a weekend. But building a physical factory and selling physical energy goods usually takes a decade just to break even. How on earth do they justify 2 years?
It does seem highly optimistic. However, the document does mention that they ran extensive sensitivity analysis and scenario analysis. This implies they've mathematically modeled the what-ifs. What if raw material prices suddenly spike? What if the euro crashes?
Right.
And they claim that even in the worst-case scenarios, the financial model holds up. The implication here is that because they are designed as a mini factory, they can start producing real value, maybe licensing out those patents early or doing small batch high value manufacturing very early on. They don't have to wait until some giant mega factory is completely finished to start generating revenue.
Optimism is great, but risk is the reality of investing. And this is where the document really surprised me. I've read a lot of prospectuses for this show. I've seen a ton of pitch decks, but I've never seen a section on reinsurance quite like Pillars 5 and 6 in this outline.
Well, this was the big aha moment for me, too. This is exactly where the Golden Fund stops looking like a typical tech startup and starts looking a lot more like a global bank.
Because when I hear the word insurance in business, I think about, insuring the physical building against a fire. Or maybe keyman insurance in case the CEO gets hit by a bus. But they are talking about insuring the project itself.
Right. Dr. Kamal is essentially borrowing a very rigid concept from the high-end banking world and applying it directly to venture capital. It's called a tech guarantee.
Break that down for us, because how do you guarantee experimental science?
Well, you don't guarantee that the market will buy it. You guarantee that the science actually works. The document outlines the strict process where, before any full-scale manufacturing even begins, the proof of concept, the POC, has to be fully validated by independent third-party laboratories.
Okay, so they aren't asking the investor to take a gamble on whether the underlying physics is real. They prove the physics first.
Exactly. They treat scientific validity as an insurable asset. If an independent global lab signs off and says, yes, this specific nanocoating actually works as described, that creates a firm floor for the risk. The investor knows for a fact they aren't buying vaporware. It's a very clever way of stripping out the technical risk, so the investor really only has to worry about the market risk. And they use global law firms to draft these guarantee contracts.
And I noticed they threw in some very heavy, serious regulatory terms here, too. ISO 31000 and Basel standards.
That caught my eye immediately. Basel standards are global financial regulations specifically written for banks.
Right.
They are literally designed to stop the global financial system from collapsing by ensuring banks hold enough capital reserves.
So why on earth would you apply strict banking regulations to a mobile science lab?
It's a massive psychological signal to the investor. It basically says, look, we are doing wild, cutting-edge sci-fi science, but we are managing the actual money like a conservative Swiss bank.
Yep.
It's a deliberate attempt to bridge that culture gap we talked about. Tech investors are used to high risk. Banking investors absolutely hate risk. This governance structure tries to make experimental tech look as safe and boring as a standard bank deposit.
That is a fascinating strategy. It's essentially saying we're going to de-risk this massive innovation through sheer bureaucracy.
Which sounds incredibly boring, I know. But if you are the one putting in $10 million, boring is exactly what you want to hear when it comes to the governance. You want the science to be thrilling, but you want the accounting to be as boring as humanly possible.
Okay, so we have the science, we have the money, and we have the safety net. But what about the actual impact? Pillar 7 covers sustainability, and honestly, every single company today claims to be green.
Oh, yeah.
If you buy a ham sandwich at the airport, the wrapper claims it's green. How is this project actually any different?
Well, usually when we talk about green energy, we are talking about generation. Solar panels, wind turbines, the things that actively make power. The Golden Fund flips this narrative completely to focus on consumption and waste.
They mention aligning with the UN Sustainable Development Goals in the text.
Yes, specifically Goals 7, 9, and 13, which is your standard stuff regarding clean energy, infrastructure, and climate action. But then look closely at Goal 12, responsible consumption. The document explicitly targets a reduction of electronic waste by 70%.
70%. I mean, that is a massive number. How do they actually plan to get there?
Durability. And this goes right back to the nanotechnology. One of the biggest, darkest problems with renewables right now is that the physical hardware wears out.
Right. Solar panels degrade baking in the sun all day.
Exactly. Batteries completely die after a few years. And then what happens to them? They go straight into a landfill. It is a huge toxic secret of the green industry.
So we're essentially trying to save the planet by just burying thousands of toxic batteries in the ground.
Pretty much. But if you can use advanced nanomaterials to make those exact same components last twice as long, or make them chemically much easier to strip down and recycle at the end of their life, you can actually hit that 70% reduction in waste.
So it's not just about green mining in the traditional sense of, digging things out of the earth more cleanly.
Yep.
It's about not needing to dig up nearly as much raw material in the first place because your products just last longer.
Exactly. And for you listening, this is a really key distinction to make. Green tech is so often just about the energy source. This proposal is fiercely arguing for green manufacturing, making the actual process of building the tech sustainable from start to finish. It's a true circular economy approach.
Let's look at the actual roadmap now, Pillar 8. Where does this whole thing go? Because the timeline they lay out seems really tight.
Very tight. They have a foundation phase mapped out for 0 to 6 months, early growth from 6 to 18 months. But the expansion phase, which is months 18 to 36, is where they really show their hand regarding their geographic ambitions.
Yeah, they definitely aren't staying local.
No, the source explicitly mentions expanding into Europe. They talk about opening a dedicated office in either Germany or the Netherlands.
Why those two specifically? Why not London or Paris?
Because Germany and the Netherlands are the absolute global heavyweights when it comes to green tech infrastructure, engineering, and logistics. The regulatory and performance standards there are incredibly high. The logic is, if you can successfully sell a green energy solution to a strict German engineering firm, you can sell it to literally anyone on Earth. It's the gold standard of validation.
It's the Sinatra principle, right? If I can make it there, I'll make it anywhere.
Precisely.
I also really liked that their goal for that expansion was super specific. It says, get 3 clients, not disrupt the entire European energy market or take over the world. Just acquire 3 European clients. It feels very grounded.
It does. It nicely balances that high-flying, save-the-world rhetoric with very specific, measurable sales targets. It shows investors that they understand you have to build a business one actual client at a time.
As we reach the end of the source document, the text offers this summary that essentially renames the whole project. It actually stops calling it a fund. And I think this is important because, words matter.
Yes, this is the reframing section. And I actually think this is the single most important part for understanding what Dr. Kamal is really trying to build here. He calls it a mobile research lab because it produces knowledge.
A mini factory because it produces real economic value.
A mini university.
Yeah.
Because it actively trains the next generation.
And a sustainability platform because it's trying to save the planet.
It really reinforces that whole ecosystem idea we started with. But I also noticed something interesting in the contact details at the very end of the prospectus.
Oh, yeah.
They list phone numbers for both Egypt and Sudan, alongside digital presence domains like smartprofessionallicense.com.
What does that wide footprint tell you?
It tells me that this is a fully cross-border initiative from day one. They are actively leveraging talent, research, and resources across Africa and the Middle East to specifically target those high-value European markets. It's a very modern, very decentralized way of building a global company. It's not just another Silicon Valley startup. It is a global South initiative aiming directly for global North markets.
So let's pull back for a second and think about what this really means for you, the person listening to this deep dive. We look at a lot of investment ideas on this show. We look at a ton of theoretical tech. Why does this specific, slightly eccentric document actually matter?
I think the Golden Fund represents a massive shift in the fundamental responsibility of the investor. Think about it. For the last 20 years, investing in tech meant being totally passive. You buy some shares in a company, maybe it's Tesla, maybe it's Apple, and you just hope the CEO is a genius.
Right. You just watch the ticker symbol go up and down, you read the news, and you cross your fingers. You're completely a spectator.
Exactly. This document proposes active scientific creation. It strongly suggests that the easy, low-hanging fruit in tech is already gone. You can't just write a social app in your dorm room and become a billionaire anymore. The next massive wave of human value in climate tech, in energy, and materials requires really hard science. And hard science requires this heavy, complex, integrated infrastructure.
It's almost like a return to the industrial age, but just with infinitely better software. You actually have to build the physical factory and the lab. You can't just drop ship the future.
No, you can't. And you have to govern it all like a conservative bank.
Yeah.
That is the truly unique mix here. It's fully acknowledging that to actually build the future, you need the daring imagination of a scientist combined with the extreme caution of a central banker.
There's a quote in the source material that I think sums up this whole attitude perfectly. It says, "We make the future with our hands, we don't wait for it."
It's a really powerful statement of agency. It totally rejects the idea that the future is just something that happens to us while we watch. It says the future is something we actively construct literally molecule by molecule, policy by policy.
It really challenges you as a listener. We live in this age of AI and nanotech where things are moving so fast, it frankly feels completely out of control most days. It
Okay.
feels like we're all just riding the waves hoping we don't crash. But this document suggests that maybe the only truly safe investment left is one where you actively control the creation of the technology itself.
It's the difference between just betting on a horse
Mm.
and actually owning the racetrack. Dr. Kamal is trying to build the racetrack.
It is a totally fascinating look into a document that tries to bridge that massive gap between hard science and hard currency. Whether the Golden Fund can actually pull off this insane triple act of being a lab, a factory, and a university all at once, well, that definitely remains to be seen. But the blueprint is certainly bold. And hey, at least now we know it is definitely not just a boring pension plan.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
It is a highly provocative way to completely rethink green investment.
Well, that's it for this deep dive into the Golden Fund. Thank you so much for listening, and we'll see you next time.